actually, I wanted to ask you a little bit about art and science
Yeah.
because I know you're into both of them, and because art has a bit of science and science has a bit of art, and I know you wrote a book also, Art in the Internet. I want to read
Yeah,
that in
I
full.
actually, so I was just sharing. This was a book I wrote, Arts on the Internet, in 1993, when the web was first coming. In fact, a former professor of mine, Glenn Urban, who's actually a sculptor, and it was the dean of the Sloan School, gave the front end. But I enjoy design. I've always enjoyed art. I have a Master's of Fine Arts in Visual Studies from the Department of Architecture at MIT. But so I trained under a woman called Muriel Cooper, is known as a Grand Dame of Design. But the thing is that if you look at people, what they tend to do, Kinara, is people tend to put all these walls, right? So if you are an artist, you must be, the crazy artist, right? And if you're a scientist, you must be the mad scientist. They use these words, or you must be a nerd, who must be
Yeah,
unhealthy,
they put
right?
things in boxes.
Yeah, they put people into boxes. But when you look at art and science, they're in many ways, the engineering principles dominate them. If you look at the work of Picasso or Michelangelo, these people are very technical, right? They had to do lots and lots of paintings. If you look at how Michelangelo did the wall on the ceiling on the Sistine Chapel, it was not you just got up there and you started painting, right? He had to figure out, he had to organize people, he had to get others to work, he had to negotiate, he had to be a business. It's not like you're just this mad scientist or crazy artist, right? And that's what the way they made it. The reality is art and science, what's important to understand is you're solving a problem. I have a lot of friends who are in set design, right? They're solving a problem. Art solves a very complex nonlinear problem. Engineering solves a very complex nonlinear engineer problem. Most artists are system scientists, whether they know it or not. Because even if you're painting something or you're doing a sculpture or whatever it is, you have to figure out what are the essential elements of it, how to execute it, right? If you're doing something in clay or bronze, it's very different than if you're doing something on acrylic on a wall, right? Many of the painters, they were chemists. They had to learn how to preserve their paints. They used to make their paints. So I think there's been an unfortunate dichotomy in the educational system, splitting these worlds. So if you're a politician, you must be a Kennedy. You must be come from this family. Politicians are all lawyers, right? They segregate people. They don't want a guy like me who's an artist, who's a scientist, who's a technologist, who's an inventor, ever entering into politics. And when we did do that, we're the ones who found the election fraud. We're the ones who discovered, exposed that Fauci should be fired. We're the ones who discovered the backdoor portal. So when people from one field naturally cross over, they don't like that, Kinara. They want people to be segregated because they can control them. Most artists today aren't really artists. If you go to New York, most of those artists who live in Soho are basically trust fund kids. The parents were very wealthy. The kid actually has no talent, right? And his mama and papa really support him. But if you really saw his work, it's garbage, right? So, and same in science, what's happened is, in the old days, prior to 1970, when you got into science, you did it for all the right reasons. You wanted to explore crazy stuff. You were not part of the mainstream. Now they've gotten rid of all those people. So the people that they have are people who are basically lemmings, who fall in line. So art and science have been damaged significantly by the imperial process that the swarm and the elites control. So you really don't have that great art anymore, nor you really don't have great science and innovation, because both have been choked by the fact the elites control who gets to become an artist and who gets to become a scientist, right? So that's what's happening.
Yeah, but the thing I also was thinking that because when I took the foundation of system science, and then you explained something like to be able to see things for how they really are, and that reminded me when I was learning how to paint, in art school, in the academy, if I paint a coffee cup or something, I have to kind of see it for what it is. I have to be honest. I can't lie, or I can't use my brain and escape it. I have to see it for what it is, so I can paint it basically. And I feel like it's the same with the science. It's like it's bounded in truth. You cannot cheat your way out of it.
But now you can. What's happened, like for example, think about, I think I shared that video I did about that professor. This is one example of a professor at the University of Minnesota who literally photoshopped biology images. And for 16 years, everyone has been chasing this hypothesis of Alzheimer's, which is completely false. $3.2 billion went into his fake images. Think about that. And nothing happened. Same in art. If you, a friend of mine went to New York, he's a pretty good sculptor, and he wanted to get his stuff in a gallery. And then the agent said, "What is your story?" And he goes, "What do you mean, what's my story? I do, I was trained by Italian sculptors." She goes, "No, you have to have a story." And she started telling him about these people who have no talent, but they would have a story. Oh, this kid was abused by his father, and then he lost his dog. So you have to tell this bullshit story, and then you may not even be able to draw anything of significance, but that becomes art, right? Because you have an agent spinning your story, right? So you look at this piece of work, and the person actually has no technique. They can never draw, right? Or paint or do anything significant, but they have marketing behind them, no different than that scientist who had a lot of marketing behind him. It's like fake art, fake science, you say?
Yeah. Well, everything's become fake these days.
Yeah.
Truth will still be truth in in art, but I like the point you have about the AI, that we should have tax collect the artists money for it, because AI is using the materials from the artists. No?
Yeah. So what I've always felt, as someone who's done quite a bit of research, for about 20 years in AI, right? Someone just said, it's interesting. Ruth says, satisfied with Shiva for U.S. to stay out of Israel and stop sending funds to Israel. Yeah, you won't find any other presidential candidate saying that, because all of them take advantage. They don't want Israel to be free. They don't want the Palestinians to be free. They play these people, right? Off. But anyway, my position on AI is the following. AI algorithms essentially have training data. So let's say they wanted to replicate you painting, Ganara. They would watch, you'd have an imaging system watch your painting, and that's called training data, right? It learns. Yeah. So one of the key things to recognize is that all of these AI systems today are learning from watching some domain. So if you're a sculptor, or if you are a cytotechnologist, or if you are a welder, my view is all of that learning data is owned by that person. And so one of the things the unions need to do is protect that training data. And if it's transferred to a robot, the company that owns a robot should pay an annuity stream back to the individual. So
owning the mining data.
Right.
What did you call it?
Yeah. So we have so you have
image like this, really.
So you have someone, you have a very ignorant person saying you're not a presidential candidate, talk to a lawyer. Well, you need to you're probably smoking a lot of weed in history class, and you're probably sleeping. This very ignorant woman, Tina May, is that first of all, you have to understand that the FEC has already ruled on this, Tina, that a naturalized citizen can run for office. Number one, so please go read that. Number two, you probably don't know what the Constitution has a concept called amendments. The 5th and 14th Amendments abrogated and repealed Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution. The amendment, the most recent amendment, can overrule the previous amendment. So I hope you understand that, or maybe you support slavery, okay? Because you have to understand, according to, the original quote unquote Constitution, women can't be president. But, the subsequent amendments overruled that. So please get that through your head and stop being stupid, okay? Because it's really makes you look like an idiot, okay? So the FEC would not have accepted my papers if I couldn't run. I can run because I can run. And furthermore, if any states stop us from getting on the ballot, they will be sued. And we will take it all the way to the Supreme Court, okay? All right.
That's right.